Happy Devils Wednesday. This is the State of the Fan Address, episode 320. Coming to you live from the Primetime Radio Studios in beautiful New Jersey, and that state called Delaware, in an undisclosed location bunker of Nick Villano of pucksandpitchforks.com. Streaming live on Facebook Live. Not really. Something's wrong with Facebook Live. I'll get to that. I'll fix it in a second. YouTube Live, X Live, and Twitch on the Let's Go Devils Network. As the Devils are back in town. The boys are back in town. The media team of the New Jersey Devils just doing a lot of filming. They're doing a lot of, I'm not going to say that word because I hate that word. It's the most overused C word in North America right now. But they're doing a lot of stuff. And, Nick, you look good. You look good. I love your studio setup in bunker number 2 where you're at.
Is this bunker number 2 or is this bunker number, 7? I feel like I've done this in so many different houses.
I don't know.
I feel like this reminds me of, remember the time we both did the podcast from our cars in suits?
What we did that? Oh yeah, we did.
And I think we had Bryce, right? Because he commented to be like, "I'm not as well dressed as you guys."
Yeah.
Somebody, though.
Wow. Yeah, I gotta go back to that episode. That was a while ago.
Yeah, it was. Listen, we have some exciting things coming this season. I'm really excited for you to announce them when we get to them. But the reason why is because we prevailed. I'm gonna just come out with it. There's a lot of Devils podcasts now.
Oh yeah.
Right? There weren't. And it's fine. Jump on the bandwagon, go grab. You get a podcast. But we have the audience that we do because we've had those moments. We have had, there's that history with us. And here's what makes me excited about so this is season 7, right? Of the flagship show.
Yes. Yep.
Think about where the Devils were 7 years ago, right? So that was what? 2016? 17?
Something like that. Yeah. Something like that.
Probably, I'm going to say 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. 22, 20, yeah. So 2017-18 is the year. So you started that Taylor Hall MVP year. So what a year to start, right? Probably helped you build that momentum right there, but then doldrums year after year after year. There was the pandemic. There was, the shortened seasons and just a litany of no good hockey to talk about. And now we see where we're at now, and people are legit talking about us being one of the best teams in the league. There are, Sam, we're going to look at the predictions. There are going to be dozens of analysts that pick the Devils to win the Stanley Cup. Now there's hundreds of people that pick Stanley Cup winners, but there will be dozens. You'd be lucky to find one last year. I can't name one person that picked us to win the Stanley Cup last year. And there probably wasn't one. And rightfully so. Who in the right mind was going to pick the Devils to win the Stanley Cup preseason last year? But the Devils had, the third best record in the NHL, behind the Bruins and the Hurricanes. They lost a lot of pieces. And I kind of wrote about that this week, talking about the pieces you probably forgot they lost. You forgot they lost, Jesper Boquist, and I bet you a lot of people don't even think about the fact that they lost Mackenzie Blackwood, who came into last season as the team starter, right? We forget that. The game number 1 of last year, Mackenzie Blackwood was in net and starting for the Devils against, was that the Flyers game?
Yes.
And then the Red Wings game was the home game.
Yep.
So, it was a weird season last year with the Devils have had weird seasons for the past 4, but it was weird and finally in a positive way. You had the winning streak, you had the weird Toronto game, you had this crazy Jack Hughes season where he broke franchise records. You had this crazy Dougie Hamilton season where he was just an offensive juggernaut. You had all these like great things happening. And for once it seemed like it just kept going the Devils' ways. Like they had all these come from behind wins. They were always put in a position to win. I think back to, I think it was in November, that Edmonton game. Do you remember when I think Jesper Bratt scored like 2 goals in like a few minutes to tie the game and they won?
It was like a quick strike
or maybe
comeback.
He scored to tie it and then to win it, something like that. But anyway, I remember Jesper Bratt scored 2 goals in succession. It was just a fantastic game. I mean, you're doing the post-game shows, so it probably sticks out in your mind a little bit more. Just like, how often did you come on there and just like elated? Like so many times they've had these crazy victories, and they come into the season and a lot of people are expecting them to compete for the division again. The Hurricanes are still the class. I do think the Hurricanes, how do I say this? On paper, the Hurricanes have added more talent, right? They got Dmitry Orlov. They brought a lot of their pieces back. The only piece they really lost is Max Pacioretty, who really wasn't there last season. But there's a couple things going against the Hurricanes. A, them getting a year older is not good. Like the Devils getting a year older is good. Jack Hughes getting a year older is good. He's going to get better. Nico Hischier getting a year older is good. He's going to get better. Jesper Bratt, Timo Meier. Like, these players are getting more and more closer or into their prime. The Hurricanes getting a year older, outside of, like, Svechnikov, who's coming off an injury. So you never know what's going to happen. And then Aho. Aho's got the new contract. I expect him to be great again. But a lot of the rest of that roster, Freddie Anderson getting a year older is really bad. Like, what is he going to look like? Adding Tony DeAngelo is a net negative, if you ask me. Like, I know he adds offense, but he's a sieve on defense. And, I guess maybe you could put him with, like,
he does take bad
Slavin?
penalties at times. Like,
who you got to – you can't put him with Brady Shea, right? Because Brady Shea has his own issues with kind of getting caught. And the Devils took advantage of that during the regular season last year. They kind of were able to hide him in the playoffs, but, Brady Shea was not very good last year. And I'm not like crazy, right? He's still on the roster. You gotta like, I'm seeing me being called out on Twitter just because but again, the rest of their defense is just stellar. Like Slavin, Brett Burns, I'm missing one. But anyway, their defense is insane. I get it. So they're gonna protect Anderson. They're gonna protect whoever's in debt for them. I guess it really doesn't matter. If Anderson gets hurt, they got the one
who
young
cares
kid
about Carolina? Who cares?
I know I'm going on. I got lost in the time warp.
Yeah.
So back to the Devils. The reason why I'm high on the Devils, obviously, they have a good enough defense. Even losing Ryan Graves and Damon Severson, they have a good enough defense because all of their forwards play defense. Even Jack Hughes is a pick-off machine. And that, like, taking it the other way, that takes you off defense. Nico Hischier, obviously one of the best two-way players in hockey. And that in itself protects a player like Dougie Hamilton, or more importantly, Luke Hughes, Kevin Ball, and possibly Simone Nemitz. So I have no worries about this defense. Some people are talking about the worries about the defense, about losing Graves and losing Severson. I think Graves and Severson were good players. But they're not as good. Their impact is not as high as what Luke Hughes is going to be. And there's going to be mistakes with Luke Hughes, but it was very obvious that Graves and Severson had their own mistakes. So it's not like they're too, like, it's not like we lost 2 Marinos, right? John Marino is like as close to mistake-free hockey when it comes to the defense as he can get when he's healthy. He had some injury issues that kind of put him in a weird place, but once he got healthy, he played close to mistake-free hockey. Jonas Siegenthaler, I think at times had trouble with keeping up with Hamilton, but 90% of the time he's as solid as oak. And you saw when the Devils, I think they sat him in what? Was that game 2? That they made him a healthy scratch against the Rangers? Do you remember?
Which guy?
Siegenthaler.
I don't remember.
It was weird. I think it was game 2. But when he was back in the lineup, he was as stellar as ever. So the Devils have to. Their defense, I'm not that worried. It's younger. Yeah, that's fine. I like Colin Miller. I think that was a good addition. Cal Foote is a decent depth guy. Like that addition. And Nemitz, when he's ready, he'll get called up. That might be this season. It might not be at all. He might not get called up at all this season. And that's fine. There was some discourse on Twitter this week because, Nemitz's performance in the prospect tournament was brought up. Nemitz was the highest drafted player in that tournament, but I feel like that draft wasn't as good as basically any other draft we've had. So Nemitz is a guy who is going to take longer to develop. He's not Luke Hughes. He's not Kale McCarr. He's not Miro Heiskanen. He's not these top level defensemen, Rasmus Dahlin or Owen Power. That's just not who he is. He's going to take longer to develop into what we know he's going to be, which is scary. It's scary to know, what is he going to be? Is he a two-way guy? Is he an offensive first guy? Is he where is he on the spectrum? When you had a guy like Jirashek, the Columbus Blue Jackets got, who's a little bit more of a known commodity, right? You're going to get out of Jirashek. But the Devils don't need Nemitz to make the roster this year. They just don't. They have we forget about Brendan Smith, who's also on the roster and had played his role. I don't want to say well or not well, but he played his role, which is the seventh defenseman, the guy who could just jump in the lineup whenever you need him to. If he's in the lineup, a lot of people are going to roll their eyes, but he's not a guy that he's reliable in what he does. And, if he doesn't take penalties, then I think that he's a net positive. He takes too many penalties. So, call that what it is, at least in high pressure situations. But the rest of the defense, I still think it's a stellar unit. That's one of the top ones in the league. I've spoken for about 10 minutes straight, Sam. So I'm going to let you talk for a minute.
Oh, okay. I didn't want to be rude and interrupt.
Listen, if I'm going too fast, I'm going to drink my beer.
Okay. Well, John Marino, I've said this many times, especially on the Woo Report. He is jacked. I mean, you could tell he's definitely coming into camp a lot stronger and more determined. And that's that mistake-free hockey you want. I also went out of my way to get a John Marino football helmet with the Devils logo on it. So I'll be wearing that hopefully on opening night. Hopefully it fits my head. It's another Hutch helmet. Going with that Marino, football theme. Because I know Steve Engel wants me to talk about the Jets, but who cares about the Jets? Anyway, by the way,
why would we talk about the Jets?
I don't know. He loves the Jets. I know the Patriots are going to beat the Jets, so anyway, there you go, Steve Engel. I just talked about the Jets. Now,
listen, Aaron Rodgers is rooting for the Rangers. Just remember that.
Yeah, just remember that. Yep.
Even though the Jets play in New Jersey, Rodgers is rooting. He was rooting for the red, white, and blue.
Yeah, and Eli Manning was rooting for the Devils, wasn't he? With his kids, he lives in Short Hills, And,
I mean, Eli Manning says that he roots for the team that's convenient at the time, which I appreciate. At least, a lot of these guys who grew up in New Jersey don't even think of the Devils. So for Eli to do that, I appreciate that.
Yeah, and offensively, I think the Devils look on paper they look great. I think it's going to all boil down to, will the youth affect their defense? You don't think so, Nick? You think they'll be just fine? Obviously, there's going to be growing pains. But my concern is health. Can they all stay healthy? Can they all stay stay healthy?
Are you talking about the defensemen?
I'm talking about the entire team. Last year, Jack did go down, not for long, when he came back. Remember, everyone's like, something's wrong with Jack. Something was wrong with Jack. Was it really wrong with Jack? I think health is going to be the biggest issue. There's a lot of depth on this team, which is good, top to bottom, but offensively. But, again, goaltending, is it going to be better? Is it going to be worse? Is it going to be just about the same? Who is it going to be? Is it going to be Keith Kincaid filling in an emergency? We don't know.
You were blocked for just saying that.
Why?
He blocks everybody on the social media. I'm blocked. Everybody I know is blocked.
I thought you were talking about, like he made a blocker. I was like, oh, okay.
Maybe the double entendre was there, but we had to explain the joke, so it's not funny anymore. Let me respond real quick to the depth thing, because I don't want to get too far away from that. So when Jack got hurt last year, and even when he came back, he didn't look the same, right? You said that there was he was something a little off for about, what was it? Probably 2 weeks, right? He was just he didn't look like that MVP self. Nico stepped up. Nico Hischier was the guy who replaced Jack Hughes, even though it's not a new person in the lineup. So then what happened is you have Eric Halla taking Nico's spot. Now, obviously, there's a drop-off from Nico to Halla, but at least you got a guy there who has, offensive instincts, at least, to kind of, play in that role. But what I think you're going to expect this year is you're going to have Nico, say Hughes does get injured for, a month. God for knocking all the wood. But you're going to have Nico take that first-line center job. I think you're going to have Dawson Mercer take that second-line center job. And I think he's going to be much more apt to play that Nico role, that Nico Hischier role. And you might not even change the lines, right? You might keep Hischier with, say, to Meyer and Bratt. Hischier, Meyer, and Bratt is the one line. And then it's Hughes to Foley, and I'm missing, it would be Mercer, right? You move Mercer to center, and you put, say, Palat or Halla or somebody like that on the wing. Maybe it's Holtz, right? Maybe Alexander Holtz gets to jump into that second line spot if Hughes or somebody goes down. And that's a lot of it, right? The biggest issue everybody has with this team, it's a legitimate one, is that you're taking a lot of veterans. You're taking Thomas Tatar, you're taking Miles Wood, you're taking Jesper Boquist. You're taking all these veterans, you're replacing them with hopes. I hope Nolan Foote can jump into the Miles Wood role. I hope Alexander Holtz can jump into the Tatar role or whoever. I know you got Toffoli too to jump into that role as well, but and then if Foote can't jump into it, can Graham Clark jump into it? If Clark can't jump into it, can Tyce Thompson jump into it? If Thompson can't jump into it, it's just on. Brian Hallinan is a guy who I think is going to get an actual look. So you're hoping that this youth, and the same thing on the defense, can Kevin Ball be an everyday player? He's paid like one. He's making $1 million a year. Can Luke Hughes become an everyday player? He's got the pedigree. Can Colin Miller fit into what this defense needs to do? This is the thing about this defense. This is what's been hard for a player like Ryan Graves. Ryan Graves struggled with this a lot. The expected speed of this defense is what's been hard for veterans to come in and adapt to. Look at Subban. PK Subban has been one of the most skilled defensemen in the league, but he lost a step, right? And he couldn't deal with the Lindy Ruff system because he had lost a step. And, I know he came into, was it Hines? It was Hines, right? When Subban came in and there was Nasruddin, that whole thing fell apart. But even with the Ruff system, he was always kind of playing catch up and always expecting to play like that superstar defenseman. And I think that's why he retired. I think somebody would have paid Subban $2 million to play the way he was playing. I think it was fine as a second or third line defenseman on the right side, which is, there's not as much great right-handed defenseman. But he didn't want to be that. You want to go work for ESPN. People really like Subban. Except for Andrew Shaw, apparently, but who cares what that guy thinks?
Yeah. Who?
Yeah, I mean he's kind of a bad guy, so like who cares what he thinks? And that's the thing is that I need to see Colin Miller be able to execute within this defensive system. But if he can, even at a third line role, like this team is doing well. So I think when you look at the injury situation, is there somebody on the bench that's going to replace Jack Hughes? Of course not. Like, right? That's just not how this works. But you have some guy, unlike other teams. Like if Florida lost Kachuk, like they're in trouble, right? Because Barkov doesn't really play that style. So you try to get Barkov to play and replace his production, but then there's nobody really, And then you're looking at like yada yada yada. Same thing with the Penguins. The Penguins lose Crosby. Of course they have Monk. Okay, I'm back. Of course they have Malkin, but how do they replace Malkin? Right? They don't really have that. Like there's always don't really have that.
We're losing signal, Nick. Sorry to interrupt, but I think we got you back, right?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You're dropping in and out. I'll go solo for a little bit and try to fix your feed, Nick. I don't know what happened. Nick is on vacation right now, and he's an undisclosed location, so the internet's a little bad. Whatever, but are you back, Nick? No, we don't hear Nick. No.
Hear me?
Now I can hear you. Yeah.
Oh, are we good?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know.
All right, we're cooking with gas.
All right, keep going.
Anyway, the point I was trying to make is that the Devils have this advantage because they have Hughes. It looks like I'm still. But
Yeah.
I'm just power through to stop. All right, tell me to stop.
Yeah, why don't you stop? And why don't you? I don't know. Are you using cellular or are you using Wi-Fi?
We're using Wi-Fi here.
Okay. Well, maybe it's working. See, folks, this is what happens on Live. This is what we do. We go out of our way, even though Nick's on vacation, we still do the podcast, and that's what separates us from the other podcasts. Is that right, Nick?
Yeah, that's where I was going. I was trying to give us a pat on the back.
Yeah.
Here's training camp starts in what, like 2 days?
Yeah.
It's ridiculously close. I would expect to see a roster tomorrow. I think the roster is going to be, and here's the thing, Sam. We haven't heard of one PTO, right? No paid tryouts. I gotta think there's at least one, right?
You would think.
There's a couple of interesting players out there. So, I think we'll hear about that tomorrow. PTOs, we'll hear about, if anybody like surprising doesn't make the roster, which I don't expect. They usually bring as many people as possible to this, and then they'll send them to Utica when the Utica training camp starts.
Mm-hmm.
But it's it's a fun time. Like it's here. It's Devils hockey is back for the first time, Sam. We feel like we have a little bit of a, I don't want to call it a guarantee because there's never a guarantee. Like we got Florida last year, but we feel pretty good going into the season. We feel like this is that team that's going to take us to the next level, right? The core of Hughes, Heischer, Hamilton, Luke Hughes, Dawson Mercer, like that feels like Jesper Bratt and Timo Meier. Like we have this seriously good core. Marino signed for a long time. And here's the thing, Sam. For the first time in a long time, we don't have like a Jesper Bratt contract situation weighing over our head. We don't have, we don't have to worry. The next big contract is probably, maybe Toffoli. Some people put Toffoli in there, and he's an unrestricted free agent after the season. But like, when you talk about the big ones, like Luke is next, and he's not even next offseason. He's the offseason after. He could sign next offseason.
What do you think about Mercer, though? Even though he's restricted, he could cause problems, couldn't he? If he wanted to.
I don't think he's going to. I really think
if he puts in 40-40, say if. That's a big if. He puts in 40-40. And he's
I think he would sign something like the Gensel contract, which is like 5.75.
Okay.
I think he wants to be a part of this.
I think he's
based
part
on every
of the
quote
core.
I've seen.
Yeah.
Oh, you got to pay him.
Yeah.
Figure it out. I don't I don't think he's going to pull a William Nylander or even a Jesper Bratt or I don't think he's going to take it to. Is he eligible for arbitration? I don't think he is. I think he's straight up restricted. I think he's going to sign one of these ridiculously long deals. He's going to do one of two things. I gotta look at how much eligibility he has. Like, say he has 5 years of restricted free agent eligibility. The Devils will sign him before. I don't think it's that long though. So I think he's going to sign something like a 7 by 5.75 or something like that, and that's going to look good. It's going to look good throughout that contract. If you get him under 6, which I think he deserves. Not deserves is like a weird word. I think he's on the progression to make that contract look really good. So, the good point though. Mercer is another one but I don't think it's going to hang over our heads like the Meyer deal, like the Bratt deal, like the Heischer deal before it. Like when when Jack Hughes was going into the year, that was the final year of his ELC. We didn't know. Like a lot of people were like, "Oh, they're going to have to trade him next year because they're going to suck." Yada yada yada. Going all the way back, Sam, to 2018, 19, when we were all talking about that entire season. What contract are they going to give Taylor Hall this offseason? He wasn't even eligible to sign an extension yet because you have to do it 1 year out from when you're an unrestricted free agent. We were talking about give him 10, give him 11. Some people were saying give him $12 million a year because this is the guy coming off the MVP, right? I mean, honestly, honest to goodness, if Taylor Hall had 1 year left on his deal in 2018, he would probably be in New Jersey right now because they would have signed him to a ridiculous deal. You remember that entire offseason, and I think it was 2019-20, right? How many times did we sit here and talk about a Taylor Hall Ray Shero dinner?
Yeah.
Multiple times. Like
that basketball game they went to with Joshua Harris.
With Josh Harris, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. I was just like, they dodged a bullet. They got lucky. I mean, the Joshua Harris, David Blitzer brand turned around last season, but could you imagine if they did sign Taylor Hall to a max contract and what happened
not
happened?
A max, but yeah.
Yeah, well,
max years, you mean?
Yeah, I'm talking max. Not our max in the YouTube Live, but just a max amount of years. That could have sunk because toxic. I mean, they would have tried to trade him, but how do you trade that contract? They would have eat it. He would be on the books.
Well, I mean, look at the Carlson deal. Carlson won the Norris, but his contract made him impossible to trade.
Yeah. That would have been the New Jersey Devils.
100-point defenseman.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think at that point you have to, eat half of it?
Luckily,
it's 4 years of, yeah.
Luckily, Ray Shero stuck to his guns, and luckily, Tom Fitzgerald made good of all the assets that came back. I mean, that was Dawson Mercer. I mean, that's what came out of it, along with Kevin
Mercer.
Ball.
Do you know what? And do you know what the underrated part of that is, Sam?
What's that?
If the Devils don't take Mercer at 18, the Rangers are taking him at 19. I guarantee that if Mercer and Schneider are on the board at 19, the Rangers are taking Mercer. No doubt in my mind. Because if you remember, when the Devils took Mercer, the Rangers trade was in that. That second, we'll give you this, and that. They were talking about that. They were all coming up.
Sorry, Nick, your
for a
feed
while.
is dropping again. You're good now. If you could just
Okay.
rehash that. We lost Nick. Sorry, folks. It happens. It happens on the podcast. Live feeds go down. Things don't look good. But Nick is back. Well, you think you're back, but you're not back, Nick. Dropped again. We're in regular season form. Oh, my goodness, says you have James Dolan internet in Delaware. I think that's the problem.
It must be. That must be what it is.
Yeah. Well, finish up your thought, and maybe we could move it along a little bit.
Right. Yeah. Do whatever you think. The point is that if the Devils didn't take Mercer at 18, if they didn't make that trade and get the 18th overall pick, even if they still made the Blake Coleman trade, right, where they got the 20th overall pick, the Rangers were taking Mercer at 19. Mm-hmm. I have no doubt in my mind. So think about a world where the Rangers have Mika Zibanejad and Mercer as their second-line center instead of having to go and overpay Vincent Trocheck and having to throw money at Barclay Goodrow, and actually Goodrow plays wing. But you know what I mean? Like, overcompensating for all these centers because they had to take, the best player available was Schneider. And I do think that the Devils were going to take Schneider. So, the good on the Rangers, they got the better player because the Devils got Mukhamadullin. But I think that, in that weird world where the Devils are signing Taylor Hall to that max contract, the ripple effect is psychotic. And,
oh, yeah.
Maybe it's something to write about. I don't think I've written about that yet. I do a lot of what ifs.
Yeah. And
they're fun. And they're usually an off-season thing. But, I could use a content generator. So maybe that'll be something. Yeah, I think they did dodge a bullet. Like straight up. And Sam, if you gave Taylor Hall 8 years after 2018, not a soul on this fan base would say boo about it. Not a soul. Taylor Hall looks like a 90-point player for the rest of the year. You thought the 93-point player you'd be upset about giving him a max deal?
I'll have to go back to old podcasts, but I was not a big fan of Taylor Hall back in those days. I just thought his kind of play was unsustainable for that length.
From like an injury standpoint, or do you think like the league would figure him out?
I mean, having that MVP type season, it's hard to duplicate. It's
I understand, but you didn't think he could be like an 85-point guy the rest of his career? I mean, he wasn't, but
no.
Okay.
But I didn't think he would fall off this badly, though.
It's bad. And now he's in Chicago.
Just remember, Taylor Hall. I think when he first started his career, he was at center, wasn't he? Coming out of Windsor Spitfires, and then he moved to the wing.
I don't remember.
Yeah, you don't give big contracts to wingers. This is just my opinion.
I mean, listen, you're not wrong. Look at the Panarin contract now.
Yeah,
like that looked like a slam dunk for 3 years. Now it's like scary.
I mean, right? Alexander Ovechkin's one thing, but
yeah,
it's hard.
There's always an outlier. Like Jágr is the outlier, and Ovechkin's the outlier, and
I find that the wingers are just kind of like running backs in the NFL.
I wouldn't go that far.
I know, I'm kidding, but
the goalies are the running backs of the NFL.
Yeah, that's true.
But I know you're hurting because of Saquon this weekend, but
he's a fast healer. I'm telling you, he's a fast healer. He'll be back in a couple weeks.
Hey, my fantasy team is hurting because of that. I'll tell you this. I look at this team right now, and obviously I think goodness that they didn't sign Taylor Hall. I'll tell you this though, Taylor Hall would be an interesting addition to this team. I'm glad they got Toffoli instead of him. I think Toffoli is going to fit so perfectly, but Taylor Hall does kind of have the skill set to fit this team. I don't even want to go into it because everybody gets mad at me when I bring up the Taylor Hall thing. Every offseason, I'm like, just go get Taylor Hall. It makes perfect sense now. Man, Sam, let me ask you this. Has there ever been a player who bet on himself and lost this bad?
Yeah. I'm kind of kidding around.
Like he signed that so he bet on himself. He didn't sign with the Devils, right? The Devils trade him to Arizona. Doesn't have a great season with Arizona. It was better than what it was with the Devils, but it wasn't good. It wasn't great. It was decent. It was fine. He signed an $8 million contract with Buffalo. We all laugh because it's like, I want to make the playoffs every year. And then he signs with Buffalo. Signs this $8 million one-year deal with Buffalo. Kind of falls on his face. Gets traded to Boston. Finally looks good. But Boston's Boston. Boston's not giving Taylor Hall $8 million a year. They're not going to especially do it with term. So he signs for, what did he sign for, less than $6 million?
I don't know.
I think it's like $5.75 million. And he plays there for, I don't remember if he might have only been there for one full season. And then they sent him to Chicago to miss the playoffs for the rest of his contract. Now it's kind of funny because they have Hall parading to do the interviews and to talk about playing with Connor Bedard and all these positives, but on paper, if you just talk to like a fair weather fan about Chicago, they're like, oh yeah, they got Connor Bedard, they added Taylor Hall, they still got Seth Jones. Like maybe they can fight for a playoff spot. No, that roster is terrible. I wanted the Devils to go after Athanasiou as like a depth guy, like a fourth liner who with some scoring upside. He's on their second line, like rock solid second liner. The defense is a trash heap. Their goaltending, I think it's Mrazek, and he looked so bad last year. That team is terrible. So Hall, what a fall for Hall, and the Devils are better off for it. But what are you looking forward to, Sam? What are you looking forward to with training camp starting this week?
Before I tell you that, Nick Chalk, yes, you were right that Taylor Hall was a left wing. I don't know what I was thinking of when he was with the Windsor Spitfires. For whatever reason, I thought he was a center.
Okay.
But anyway, I just want, honestly, when I think about preseason, I don't look at the records. I don't care if they're beating teams or not. I want them to be healthy. I want them to have that team chemistry. I'm looking forward to seeing some of these young kids play in preseason games, especially Luke. And, again, I guess what I'm really looking for is also the goaltending.
I'm really looking forward to the goaltending. That was going to be my point. I want to see all of them. I even want to see Kincaid and Calgren and see what they do.
I mean, it should be interesting. And, obviously we're going to be at American Whiskey on opening night, October 12th, plus that October 13th. I was talking to you off air about it. It's right now a hush-hush, but big things happening with the podcast, right, Nick?
We got big dates, and we got the 13th. We got the 24th. Is going to be something fun.
Yeah, I've been plugging that, but I have no details on it. So you're going to have to tell me the details because I said, hey, we're going to be out on the road on the 24th, but I can't tell you where.
Let's just say that I would mark that day on the calendar if you're somebody who likes to have fun while watching the Devils, because it's going to be one of the most fun nights we've ever had on the podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, plus the outdoor game, which tickets went on sale for pre-sale.
I think just for season ticket holders, right?
Yep, just for season ticket holders. And I was able to score.
And they are expensive.
Yeah. Were you surprised that I was like, "Hey, Nick, I held a seat for you, just in case." I know we didn't talk about it.
Yeah, listen, I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be there one way or the other. But I appreciate it. I appreciate you thinking of me. And yeah, I mean, listen, the Venmo will be in the mail once I know if I need it or not. But it's good to know.
Well, I charge interest on that, so you're gonna have to double the Venmo. When you decide. I'm kidding.
Listen, my presence is a gift, but that gift isn't free. So,
just jokes. Just jokes.
Anyway, but we're about there, Sam. I don't know where we went with this podcast. I should have made a rundown. This is what happens when I don't have a guest.
Freestyle.
I was worried about. Yeah, I was worried about the internet, so we didn't book a guest this week, and I was smart to do that. Clearly, we talked a lot about Taylor Hall, but it was fun. I enjoyed it, but I'm ready for plugs whenever you are.
Yeah, plug away.
So obviously, pucksandpitchforks.com. We're still posting as much as we possibly can. I gotta say, Sam, I've had to kind of hold off just because of certain things. Life happens, but I'm still doing my best to post every single day. We just had 2 posts today. One from Trey Matthews on Eric Halla. He's calling him out, saying he should be the assistant captain to Nico Hischier alongside Jack Hughes. We have one from Marcy Rubin talking about how last year was not a fluke. Big things coming from the Devils this year. And then I wrote one I've wrote a bunch, but I wrote one recently on Luke Hughes. And then I wrote one yesterday that went up today about the players that you forgot are no longer on the team. The Jesper Boquist of the world. I thought about let me ask you this, Sam. Did you remember that Igor Sharangovich isn't on this roster anymore?
Who?
Yeah. So I didn't have him on the list because I was like, I think enough people, just because he was in that Tyler Toffoli trade, but now I regret it. He probably should have been on the list. But he wasn't. We talked about him. But there's a bunch of guys that you probably don't realize no longer a part of the Devils organization, right? They're somewhere else. So go read that. It's on pucksandpitchforks.com right now.
All right. A couple things I'm going to plug. We got a big season upon us, so keep it here on the Let's Go Devils podcast. The other thing as well, looking at the numbers, Nick, we are on pace to be at the 1 million downloads by March, around that time period. So last season, we were at a 500,000 party at American Whiskey last February. Come this upcoming February, we may be at 1 million downloads with this podcast. It is wild. It is wild. I want to thank the fans.
For $1 million?
Well, if it's at the outdoor game, it's I don't know. That's going to be.
We got to separate our parties. There's already going to be an outdoor party. We need the 1 million downloads party needs to be extensive.
Yeah, I mean, also, we're gonna. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I've already made arrangements if it does happen. Our good friend of the podcast, Sean Burke, Stanley Cup champion with the Vegas Golden Knights, that when they're in town in late January, we'll have a guitar for him at the bar at American Whiskey and playing some tunes and all that kind of stuff. So he can have any kind of guitar he wants. He's, whatever. Hopefully we can make that happen. But keep it here. We got some good things planned. That's about it. So I'm going to hit the music, Nick, and enjoy the rest of your vacation in the beautiful first state.
The first state.
Yeah.
Also the first state quarter.
Yes. Also the first state to legalize sports betting, gambling.
Not true.
No?
No. The first state was Nevada. The second state was New Jersey.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, New Jersey won the court case to legalize that. Maybe they got their SHI together, but New Jersey is the one who won the case. To get
New Jersey. No, yeah, New Jersey won the case, but Delaware beat New Jersey because New Jersey couldn't figure out how to deal with whose politician would get what money.
Yeah, Delaware. The sports betting here is a little.
Yeah.
How do I say? You gotta there's 2 locations in the entire state. At least last time I checked. I just gave up. But anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Alrighty. Anyway. Thank you, everybody. Till next time, let's go Devils.